I'm Helen.
I'm Miss Sinclair.
And I'm Edison. Y'all better grab your extra large popcorn. We are in the thick of things with great films.
I am open and positive.
I don't like it.
Let's throw on these boxing gloves.
Let's do it.
Let's fucking do it.
Welcome to Talk Movie to Me, a weekly podcast where we do a deep dive on a new release that's just hit theaters or streaming. I'm Helen.
I'm Miss Sinclair.
And I'm Edison. And this week we have a very special double feature for you. Oscar season may be done, but these films, well, they were not in competition, so we're watching them now. And yeah, it's going to be a fun episode. Sinclair, why don't you take us away with our first film?
Former UFC fighter Elwood Dalton, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, has a murky, violent past. He spends his days contemplating suicide and scamming at an underground fighting ring. One thing's for certain. When Dalton makes an entrance, he instills fear with each footstep, sending the other fighters fleeing the building. Because you don't want to come face to face with Dalton. He's ripped. He's no nonsense. And he's got nothing to lose. Do you think your knife intimidates him? Go ahead, take a stab. He'll just duct tape that shit back up, no problem. Dalton is approached by Frankie, the owner of a chaotic bar called the Roadhouse down in the Florida Keys. Frankie wants to bring peace to her establishment, and she thinks Dalton is the perfect man for the job. Well, she actually was there for some other guy. But Dalton is the real man for the job. Mm-hmm. Dalton takes the deal and heads down to the Florida Keys. What's a few broken bones and some new scars? These things don't scare Dalton. He's willing to throw some punches and look damn fine while he's doing it. But the Roadhouse might become more than he bargained for. There's gangs, gators, mob bosses, and a sheriff who ain't on the right side of the law. Mm-hmm. Directed by Doug Liman, Roadhouse asks the question, where's the nearest hospital?
Just 25 minutes away.
All right. First impressions, Edison.
All right. So this movie opens with a bunch of punches to some dude's face. And we're in this underground fight club in a bar. And it's Post Malone who's fighting this guy. And I only really know what he looks like because I saw pics of him online after he spent $2 million to purchase a single Magic the Gathering card last year.
Well, he's also in This Is Me Now. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Oh,
that's true.
He's one of the zodiac signs.
I had forgotten that.
He's a Leo.
That tracks. Mm-hmm. But what my first thought here was that I was actually impressed by the fighting. I didn't know exactly how they did these shots, but it really looked like the guy was getting smashed in the face. And then we cut to the outside, and there's this mysterious new fighter getting out of his car and walking into the bar, into this makeshift fighting ring. And he's in the shadow or shot from behind, but obviously it's Jake, our movie star. And I have to say I'm into it at this point. For some reason, this opening was really giving me Coyote Ugly. And I don't know if it was truly the music choice or the style of the bar, the color palette, the way it was shot. I don't know, but I was like, okay, it's giving Coyote Ugly. And I was here for it. What did you think, Helen?
Well, you two watched this before me and were texting about how hot Jake was.
Yes,
about his
all
insane
night
body.
we were texting that, yeah.
Well, Sinclair was.
Yeah, just me.
Oh, I thought you were too.
Yeah, actually, Edison wasn't saying too much about... but
do you not think he's hot?
I don't think he's been your thing, though.
I don't fancy Jake at all.
That's insane.
I can certainly acknowledge that his body is completely insane, but I don't fancy him. Even a little bit.
More for the rest of us.
Yeah. Isn't that funny, though?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily... I was expecting him to have this insane body, which he absolutely does. But I was kind of more enthralled by his kind of withheld demeanor. He's got this face. It was giving me old Jake, early Jake Gyllenhaal of this kind of shy, reserved boy with this insane man's body, which I was kind of I love this juxtaposition, and I was here for it.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Sinclair?
Yeah, I think that this movie has a great energy when it starts. I liked the underground fighting ring stuff. I was a bit distracted by Post Malone because I was like, I think that's Post Malone. I also, don't follow him too much, but I can recognize him when I see him.
Yeah, he's not exactly like a shrinking violet.
Yeah, he's not like some wallflower. I think it's funny because I actually had the opposite reaction that you had, Edison. I thought the fighting didn't look good. And that I found distracting while I was watching this. I thought the punches looked fake. So
there's a reason for that, which we can talk about later.
Well, I need to know. I don't know how they did this technically, and we'll talk more. We can talk more about that.
Yeah. But I had the opposite reaction. I was kind of distracted by the fighting and the punches because I thought it did look a little bit fake. Okay. Then Jake is coming in with the hood on, and he takes the hoodie off, and I had no words. Like I was just, I love Jake Gyllenhaal. He's one of my favorite actors. He's definitely one of my celebrity crushes, and I have no words. I can barely get the words out right now. He just looked so good. And
you were both like superfluous in your.
Yeah, I was like, I think he's the hottest person who's ever existed on the world ever in the history of the universe.
Yeah, and it was also just like his combat boots too. I just loved his look in this, and I thought even if the movie is terrible, it doesn't even matter at this point. I'm fully in. This movie is a gift.
Okay, well, yes, this is a gift. So why don't we jump into storytelling? But before we open that present, let's touch on the past. Sinclair?
Yes. Okay. Well, Roadhouse is a movie that's originally from 1989, starring Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
The original is a great time. I really like the original. It's so much fun. This one is honestly pretty similar in a lot of ways. Both movies have a character named Dalton. In the first one, Patrick Swayze, he's a professional bouncer at the beginning, where this one, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Dalton, is a former UFC fighter, so that's a bit different. But one of the biggest things really is the setting. So they put the new one in the Florida Keys. The original one is set in Jasper, Missouri. Both Daltons have a Zen-like quality to them. In the original film, Patrick Swayze actually is someone who studied philosophy. But Jake Gyllenhaal's Dalton also has a Zen-like quality to him as well. It's just in a different way. There's a Dr. Love interest in the original. And in the original, Patrick Swayze, he lives above a barn in this really cool, like, open space, open concept top of a barn. And this one, Jake Gyllenhaal is obviously on a houseboat. And one of the really fun things from the original is that Patrick Swayze's character kind of has a dark past of violence. He can actually like rip people's throats out, which is one of my favorite parts of the original film. But they do have both have a violent past, and there's a crime boss in the town. There's shady business. There's all of that. So, really, I would say like the Roadhouse is a lot more like brawly, dirty, grimy, sweaty. This one, in the new one, it felt more like Florida douchebag.
Well, it actually kind of felt like a bar I'd want to like visit if it weren't for the fighting.
But it definitely looked a lot nicer than the original. The original one's really like tough and grimy. This one definitely, and the new one, looked a lot more trendy. For sure.
One thing I will say that the old one had that this one does not is the incredible line where the villain grabs Patrick Swayze from behind and says, "I used to fuck guys like you in prison."
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I mean, generally, there's a lot of similarities in terms of story and character. Yeah.
I quite liked, I would say, the first half of this movie. I thought it moved really quickly, which I appreciated. Didn't waste any time getting ourselves to the Roadhouse. And I was really loving just watching Jake's character and how he interacted with people and how he was just like so calm and knew how to manipulate everyone. I actually did. I mean, there was a point where I was like, this is such not a movie for me. And I'm really entertained by it.
I love that.
I will say by the end, I was like, this has gone off the rails and it lost me. But for at least the first half, I was like, okay, I'll keep watching this movie.
I think that's fair. I also really liked it and kind of feel similarly. It went off the rails a bit at the end, totally. But like, I think part of what made it work for me so much, I thought the comedy was actually really fun here.
Yeah, same.
And really successful. I also loved the way that Dalton interacted with the other characters, particularly like Lucas Cage's character, Billy, the bouncer who was there but like clearly needed a confidence boost and some coaching from Dalton. Their dynamic was really fun. And also the biker goons that he beat the shit out of, particularly the one guy, the sort of dumb one,
Arturo Castro.
Yeah, like he was hilarious.
He's a great comedic actor. He has been in a few shows that I love. He's in Broad City.
Okay, I haven't seen.
And so it was funny to see him in this. When I first noticed him as one of the bikers, I was like, wait, why is he in this? Like that doesn't make any sense. And then as soon as he started talking and you realize his character is meant to be so funny, I was like, oh, that's an excellent choice. Yeah. Like a great way to elevate a movie that could just be like a bland macho movie.
Well, and I feel like the film was pretty goofy. Like it went there and he understood the assignment.
Yeah.
And I even just the scene of like when Dalton like beats the shit out of them all and then is like driving them to the hospital, like it was funny.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I think the premise of Roadhouse is super silly.
Yeah.
So you like have to lean into that. Like I remember when I saw the original film, I was like, this is the most dramatic story about a bouncer. Like I couldn't believe how dramatic it got and how violent it got, and it was just it just really goes for it, and that's kind of the point. I feel like this is a fighting movie, so the plot tends to come second to the energy and the fighting.
I did think to myself, like, are there actually places like this where people are constantly fighting like this aggressively, throwing beer bottles every 10 seconds? Like there was so much broken glass in this movie.
I know.
Like, it's like, this
how many in this tiny little town, like how many thugs are there that are just like pounding each other in these bars and like
viciously fighting?
Yeah. Well, you do in this one, I mean, you do realize that they are purposely doing that to kind of like take over this business and take over this space, and that this is being put on by like a bigger nefarious character that's kind of like puppet mastering all of this.
And I did appreciate that because I did feel like it was unrealistically violent.
Oh God, I basically thought that there was like so much like fat to be just because I didn't know the point of the doctor, the weird like half commitment to the doctor subplot.
Yeah, I didn't really need that.
No point. The like evil villains on the yacht and like silly. I don't know. I found all that so completely absurd. But
you kind of need it to have a story.
Well, I guess that's true. This in general felt very like 80s 90s movie for me, and I'm realizing that this is kind of what streaming is giving people. If studios aren't going to fund these films for theatrical release because they're so focused on like the big, either the like art house Oscar bait or the big budget situations, then this is what like Netflix and them is for. And it's great for the actors in some ways, but like they're not on they're movies. Jake's a movie star. He wants to be on the big screen. And though I will say, like, it's interesting because I've read two different conflicting reports now. I read one where Doug Liman was given a choice by Amazon, and Jake as well, that they could have a $60 million budget with a theatrical release or an $85 million budget, and it'd be strictly on streaming. And they chose the latter. But then I also heard reports that Doug Liman was like fighting with Amazon and pissed off at them and like kind of a burnt bridge because he had fought for theatrical release and they wouldn't do it. So I don't actually know which is accurate.
I think ultimately, though, more people would watch this on a streaming service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so,
I mean,
too.
how many people would go to see this in the theater? It's definitely one of those films where, I mean, after seeing the stills of Jake Gyllenhaal, I definitely would have made it out to the theater. However,
Yeah.
I think that it does make more sense to go, oh, okay, I'll just wait until that's on streaming. I'll just watch that at home. Because realistically, this film isn't that good.
No.
It's not so good that you have to go out to the theater to see it. I think it definitely will have more of an audience on streaming. Like, even when this first came out, when I went on Letterboxd, it was being reviewed like crazy. Like, people had it watched really, really quickly.
It's fun. It's a fun one for people to watch at home with some beers and just like easy. Why don't we jump into performances? So let's talk about Jake. Obviously, he's the center of the sun at the center of the galaxy of characters.
I mean, for me, he's what elevates this movie and made it way more watchable for me than it would have been if it was somebody else. Like I said initially, it's because he has this juxtaposition of like this crazy physique and this introspective face and quiet demeanor that I found like really compelling. And he's a really good actor.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can give good actors any script and they will make it better.
Yeah.
They'll find something to put into it. And I will say, yes, while I'm not on the like, I don't fancy Jake. I don't find him super hot. I'm not sure why, but like, I definitely love him as an actor. He's one of my favorites. And I agree completely. He's got so much charisma, so much presence. He made so many interesting choices. His way of being so chill and like friendly whilst being like the toughest guy in the movie is a fun choice. And like, I thought he was fantastic. Yeah, for me, he's the reason the film is good. 100%.
Yeah. He's so good in this because I think that like what I loved about it was like he combined Lou Bloom from Nightcrawler with like Southpaw. So he has those Lou Bloom qualities in this, that kind of aloofness, that sure you want to do that? Like, okay. Like, he has this demeanor of, I know more than you do.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And then he has that grittiness and that body of Southpaw. I thought it was just such a cool combination.
Well, and just think about his versatility as an actor. Like, he can do the creepy, wily thing in Nightcrawler. He can do this character. Do you remember when he did Sunday in the Park with George?
Yes.
And he was like, he sang that song walking through the stage. Like, he can do anything. Like, he can actually do any genre and do it really well.
He's a really interesting one because he's not actually a box office draw. When you look over his like the box office totals of his filmography, he rarely pulls people into the theater, but he does still elevate every project that he's a part of. So he's got a real interesting sort of, I don't know, leading man quality, I guess.
I mean, I think that he still excels the most when he is doing something like a Nightcrawler or a Prisoners. It's or Nocturnal Animals. Like, I just think he excels in that kind of like dark, gritty film.
100%.
But then he has this career of when he like beefs up, and he'll do Spider-Man, you know, and he'll do Ambulance. And he's done Prince of Persia.
Oh my God.
You know, but I think he definitely excels in one more than the other, but I mean, it's all good at the end of the day.
It's all good.
Yeah.
He's really the only like real performance in this movie. Like, we talked about Arturo Castro earlier. He was the other highlight for me. Conor McGregor, did you know? So he got this. He broke a record with his salary for this film. This is his first time being in a feature film, and he is the highest paid first time performer in any film ever. And
how much money did he get?
Well, it wasn't announced how much, but The Rock previously held that record for $5.5 million. So it's more than that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm very curious on where things will go from here, because honestly, for me, as soon as he came on the screen, it's like the movie went down a notch.
100%.
100% agree.
Like he was so noticeably out of place.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
he looked like a robot.
he
like
just didn't work. He didn't work.
wrestling robot with really white teeth who wouldn't stop smiling. I was like, does he know how to not smile? Like, what's happening here?
Okay,
like,
but
stop smiling.
but that ass was perfection.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not an ass person, but that's for you. You can have his ass. We'll split Jake.
Okay, fair. Yeah, but no, I agree. He was
now,
like
I will
terrible.
say that, like, when he wasn't speaking and it was just him and Jake fighting, that was interesting. You know, that was okay to watch. I mean, obviously we'll get into the actual fights, but
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like their energy fighting was good. But I mean, anytime Conor McGregor was being an actual character, it didn't work.
You can just tell he's not an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Let's get into the fights in technical.
So I just want to say, because at the beginning, where we disagreed, Sinclair. So the fight sequences at the beginning impressed me at that, but by the end they did start to feel almost like I was watching an animated movie or something.
Yeah.
They did not feel real at all. I'm not sure that was a critique on my side, because truly, like, the movie has no grit whatsoever. It is just sort of dumb fun camp. So I don't know that I minded that, but it lost that. Like, I did not feel the same as the film progressed at all.
Yeah. They were using this new technique that's called multi-pass technique, where they create computer-generated body doubles for everybody who's fighting so that they can land punches. So in traditional fight choreography, you would cheat it so that people don't actually get hit, right?
Yeah.
But here what they're doing is they're, having the actor throw the punch and then at the very last second putting in a CGI body double so that you can see the punch being landed and then going back to the real person. So that's why it looks so weird, because it's like half real, half CGI'd.
Okay.
I
So it
think
literally is sort of
CGI
animated.
Yeah.
doesn't look good. I just don't think it looks good. And the thing is like, you have Conor McGregor. Like, you have an actual fighter.
Yeah.
Get him in there with sometimes Jake Gyllenhaal, sometimes a stunt double.
I know.
And do real fights. I mean, why wouldn't you? And I know it's like a stylistic choice, but I mean, the fights need to look good in a fight movie.
And I feel like they could have. Like, I guess maybe they're
yeah.
just trying something new, but like, I actually like the amount that Jake Gyllenhaal trained and like changed his body for this role, and then you have Conor McGregor. Like, why not just let them actually fight? Obviously not injuring themselves, but like do what you would normally do when you have the quality of bodies there,
Well, it might be, though, truly that, like, Conor McGregor is a fighter,
Right.
but he's not a stunt fighter.
Yeah,
he's
true.
not a wrestler, so he doesn't know how to fake it.
But
He's like
still,
an actual
get the
fighter.
stunt double in there.
Yeah.
I mean, movies have been doing it forever.
Ever. Yeah.
Yes.
So in the original film, the style of fighting it's a lot more like karate, tai chi.
Okay.
It's like that 80s martial arts style. But this one is cool because they changed it to like the, MMA mixed martial arts. And that, you can get like really gritty with it and really, I mean, this was just too stylistic. And it was bloody, but they just could have gone more gritty with it. I mean, why not? It's a fight movie.
Yeah.
All right. What is the last word on Roadhouse? Sinclair.
Last word. Jake Gyllenhaal. His performance, great. His body, great. Conor McGregor, no thank you. This movie isn't great. It's a lot of fun, though. I think it's like worth the watch. I mean, why not? And yeah, love Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a gift. He's just a gift.
Yeah. Gift to the screen.
Gift to the screen.
One thing I forgot to mention, so I'll just say it for my last word. I enjoyed the music in this a lot, and you can tell that they were showcasing real musicians.
They did that in the first one too.
Oh, okay, cool. I loved that. I thought that added another element to this that made it more than just a dumb boy movie.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Last word for me, this whole ridiculous pile of whatever is held together by Jake's awesome performance and his abs. And that is enough. So I would say have a couple of beer and watch this and you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
Hey everyone.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace.
And we're the Horror Queers.
Every week, we do a deep dive into a different horror film and look at it through a queer lens.
This could mean pointing out queer creatives that worked on the film.
Or applying a queer reading to some of your favorite horror movie characters. Episodes can be serious and academic.
Or fun and frivolous.
It depends on the movie.
So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today to start getting your weekly dose of queer horror.
Horror Queers, available wherever you get your podcasts. Or find us online at bloody.fm.
And now for a movie that brings shame to everyone involved. Immaculate. Starring Sydney Sweeney and directed by Michael Mohan. In Immaculate, Sydney plays Cecilia, a nun in an unspecified period of time who gets recruited to take her vows at an Italian convent. Soon after her arrival, Cecilia gets pregnant. But how? She's never had sex. And she's been cooped up in this boring-ass convent where all they do is wash sheets and kill chickens. It must be Immaculate Conception. That's right. She's got baby Jesus 2.0 in that belly, and nobody's going to stop him from being born. Immaculate asks the question, who approved this?
You know what? I just love that Helen cannot poker face her way through an intro.
I know, at all, ever.
Like,
I know, it's
she just has to put her opinion in the intro.
When the opinion is strong.
When the opinion is strong, it's just like coming in full force into the intro.
This
is really
deserves
fun.
no ambiguity.
I saw this last night and I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know how y'all are gonna feel about this. But I will say I went with my two cousins, and there was a trailer before it for a film called Long Legs with Nick Cage on the horror
that
film.
looks right.
It does, and there's like a jump scare in that trailer, and I fucking screamed like screamed.
Did you
in
kink
the
your
theater.
neck? You seem okay.
I did not kink my neck.
Okay.
No.
Edison has a habit of screaming in horror movies and kinking his neck.
Or knocking over all his popcorn.
Yeah.
It was very embarrassing. Fortunately, there were only a few people in the theater at the time. But yeah, so this film opens with Simona Tabasco, who of course won the Hearts of the World playing Lucia in White Lotus season 2. So I was immediately very invested because I love her, and I will say I found this opening scene to be totally stressful and fantastic in terms of building suspense and tension. So it did have me really excited for the rest of the film. I thought it was a really promising start.
Well, that's the last to see of her.
I know.
I know. Like, why wasn't she the friend nun?
Yeah, she could have had a
Seriously.
bigger part, eh?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to like Drew Barrymore and Scream her, maybe.
It was too dark. You couldn't even tell it was her.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What was your first impression, Sinclair?
Okay, well, I was like a minute late because I went to go get a Subway sub. And when I walked into the theater, it was so dark because the opening scenes are like pitch dark.
Pitch black, pretty much.
Pitch black. And there were I couldn't see the numbers on the seats.
Yeah.
And I was like walking up and there was two girls in front of me and I couldn't see them. But one of them like tripped and fell.
Yeah.
Because it was so dark in the theater. And like I finally like made my way to Helen and she was like, did you fall? And I was like, no. Those were the girls in front of me who also had to cross us to get into our row.
And then another two people crossed us again and I was like, people, get it together.
It was so dark. So I mean, that's what I was thinking the whole time this movie had started. Helen was like, "Hey, is that the girl from White Lotus?" And I was like, "I don't know. I can't see shit. I don't know. Maybe." Finally, when the first scene ended and there was some daylight in the movie, I was like, "Thank God!" And then I started eating my sub. I was really distracted for the first part of this movie, but I was like, okay, wow. Yeah, Sydney Sweeney's coming to this convent. Yeah. Listen, I need to say, Helen and I started giggling as soon as she came on the screen as a nun. Yeah. We weren't buying in. Like, we weren't.
That's my first impression is the second she opens her mouth, I just burst out laughing.
Yeah, we were done. We were like, we are not buying into this at all. Like, it was already set in stone.
Like, girl, you are not a nun.
No.
In no universe do you pass as a nun. I'm sorry.
In no world. In no world.
I mean, I agree. Let's save the deep dive into that for performances. But yes, what I will say in terms of storytelling, this is where the film suffered for me in the biggest way. I didn't feel like anybody was acting in a way that would have made sense for their characters. Like nobody was real. No. And when you're talking about you don't believe her as a nun, yes, but also there was no character. Yeah. Like who is Cecilia?
Who's anyone? Who is anyone in this movie?
She's the new nun in town. Coming in from Michigan.
Yeah. Detroit.
Yeah, but they didn't give, like, we're meant to believe that she's devout enough to travel to Italy alone to a remote convent to take her vows and become a nun. Yeah. She says it herself when Sister Isabel, the cranky one, says, if you've come here to discover yourself, you've made a mistake. And she basically says, like, no, I've been tested. I'm so sure God has put me here for a reason. But, like, the
Zero
immediate
backstory.
Next scene, she's like doubting everything. She doesn't want to kiss the ring. She's got inside jokes with the other nun. Like, it's so inconsistent.
And also, she like had a near-death experience and lived. And her first thought is like, now I will become a nun and not be able to do anything. Like, you think that you would be like, oh my God, I have a second chance at life. I'm going to fucking live it up.
No, she was like, I'm going to be a virgin.
I'm going to go be a nun.
Also, she just like seemingly has no family and zero connection to anything other than this movie. It's because she's not a well-written character. She just gets plopped in a script.
Yeah.
No character. None whatsoever.
And I mean, obviously we'll talk about this in performances, but I think that the problem, the character is not a character.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you really do need an actress that, if you're not being given a lot as a character, you need an actress that's going to elevate that character.
Yes.
So you believe in it at least slightly.
A creative choice, like Jake in the last one, giving us that combination.
You have to make a creative choice.
This is a great example of the opposite of what Jake does in
Yes.
Roadhouse. She makes this movie worse.
But it's not even just her character. It's none of the characters. Yeah. Like the other nun who was like her friend, who gets her tongue cut out. You know, there's that one scene. Like, I guess I could buy someone like leaving an abusive relationship and becoming a nun because they somehow found like strength and solace and comfort in their relationship with God. But that's not this, because then Cecilia asks her, are you not a believer? And she says, oh yes, I believe in God, because only a man could be so cruel. Which, but also like,
then who
this
are
is
you?
not a person who would become a nun.
Yeah, 100%. Like also not enough. Yeah.
Also, do we know when this is supposed to be taking place? Because
she sounds like a vocal fry TikToker. And
but then also she's carrying like an old school suitcase, and like the customs guys are smoking cigarettes indoors, and so like we don't know what time period this is supposed to be.
Is this meant to be older?
No, it's not.
No, they're cell phones.
Because Helen
There's
was
cell
like,
phones,
Helen was like, oh, okay, this is, you know, a period piece. But then it flashes to like modern day cars, and we were like, oh no, it's not. This is modern day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, what about the other nuns? Like the moment when there's that bit when she walks into the dinner hall and the nuns all stand up for her, and they're like, they actually like are lovely looking. Most of them are warm and smiley, and like they look like nuns, but they're at a convent where tongues get cut out and legs get broken.
Yeah, and like clearly for like a long period of time.
They're all held captive. Like, who are these nuns?
This world doesn't exist.
and no, and doesn't make any sense.
This is such a flimsily written script. Like, I need to know, like, what was the point of this?
Yes.
What's the point? Is the message supposed to be like, fuck the Catholic Church and religion is so fucked up? Because I agree with that, but like, you don't need to go this far to show that.
I think thematically, I felt like this was sort of an indictment on the ways in which like men in power want to control women's bodies.
See, that didn't come through.
But I'm not going to give it credit for that.
No. You didn't get. I think it was that. It was like so pointedly
I
that.
think it like.
I think it would like to think that's what it's saying.
Yeah. I'm not going to give it that credit at all.
Well, it wasn't good enough to make it work, but I thought that was an obvious theme that it was going for.
I felt no evidence of an actual fight for women's rights in this movie. I saw evidence of a character wanting to get out of a scary situation, but at no point was I like, oh, is she traumatized that she was violated and impregnated? Like, that never came through for me. It was just like, oh, I need to get out of this scary place because I'm being held captive. It actually didn't have anything to say about the fight for women's autonomy over their bodies, especially that final scene where he's like trying to give her a C-section, and then she like that whole final segment. I honestly like wanted to spit on this movie. Like, it made me so mad.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Well, I want to talk about nunsploitation.
Yeah,
a bit. On that note, so nunsploitation. This is a subgenre of horror movies featuring nuns, obviously. One of the first nunsploitation films was a film called Hexon. It's from 1922. And nun movies became quite popular. One of the most popular nunsploitation movies is a film called The Devils. This is a film by Ken Russell. It's from 1971. And this was an influence on Immaculate. The film The Devils is like completely bonkers. It's controversial. It was banned. It has horny, writhing nuns. It has religious orgies. Like, it goes for it. And it's meant to be really critical of religion, but also maybe you're a bit horny for religion. Like, it's really just exploitation. Like, it's going for it. And a little shout out to Felicia Maroney, who has been on this podcast before. She hates this movie so much, and if you try to talk to her about it, she will try to fight you in the streets. So shout out to her. That's how exploitative this movie is. It like really gets a rise out of you. And that's supposed to be the impact, right? It's supposed to make an impact. But then you have films about repressed sexuality. So the nun represents this repressed figure, and different themes of like lesbianism can be explored, and control over women's bodies. There's a really beautiful film that inspired Immaculate called Black Narcissus. It's from 1947. It's made by Powell and Pressburger. It is a beautiful film that kind of explores those themes. And I think that the idea of a movie that features nuns is interesting, because when you think about like a holy figure, there's something really unnerving about thinking that evil can get to them. Evil can get in them. You know, maybe they're a connection to a higher power. Maybe they channel the wrong spirit. Like, there is a connection there that these portals can be open. There's like something believable about that.
Well, it's funny because like I thought sorry to interrupt. There's the one like tiny thought I had when she was walking out of the, I guess, airport or bus station or whatever in the habit. Yeah. I just had this moment of like, how do nuns exist in the world? Like, probably are most people like respecting to, like, do they respectful towards them? Do people like let them have their seat? But probably if you're like an evil person out in the world, they're like a magnet. Like, if you're going to be evil and fuck anybody up, you'd want to fuck up a nun, I guess. I was just like, I don't know, like, are
maybe you
nuns
wanna fuck up a
safer?
nun, Edison, I don't know.
No, I don't. I'm not evil, but I'm imagining if I, but like, how do nuns like exist in the world?
I know, I did have that thought at the beginning where I was like, do nuns still exist?
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
what
if
do they-
someone
still a
want to
thing?
choose that life,
Yeah.
do nuns go for brunch?
Well, yeah. There's just, I think that, especially in terms of femininity and different female issues, there's like so many things that you can explore with horror, with nuns, like that. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think the issue with Immaculate for me is like, okay, well, you're taking this genre of horror, but you're not doing anything with it. You're not going full force with it, but you're also not being a really, like, this isn't a great film. Like, a great film would be Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
A great film is Black Narcissus. Like, these are good films. This movie is not that, but this is also not...
It's not campy
It's
enough.
also not
Yeah.
campy either.
Yeah.
And, like, the idea that you have a sex symbol... The biggest sex symbol right now probably
is Sydney Sweeney.
is Sydney Sweeney. The fact that Sydney Sweeney's playing a nun is fucking hilarious. And it's actually kind of genius.
And her boobs were,
To be honest, like...
were really like highlighted throughout this film
Were
as
they,
well.
though? I feel like...
Yes.
I just
They were
feel
just teased.
They were teased. I feel like they didn't lean into it enough, and this
They
movie
didn't lean
isn't
into
not-
it at all.
It's not good enough to not lean into that camp.
Yeah.
So my biggest complaint about, I guess all of the complaints, but like my one thing is that this film didn't lean into anything. Like the first half or the first like 70% or whatever, until the moment at which she bashes the Reverend Mother in the head with the cross,
Right.
and then everything just goes crazy at that point.
Yeah.
Up until then, the film is like trying to be this weird, quiet, somber, like I don't know what. And then it turns into this other whole crazy balls of the wall horror situation with that, especially that final sequence with her giving birth. And it's like, these are two totally different directions in a movie.
Because it's balancing two things. It's trying to be an extreme exploitation film, and it's also trying to be just like a good film, like Rosemary's Baby. It's sitting right in the middle of that, and it's not choosing a side.
And people are going to see this movie because they think they're going to see horny Sydney Sweeney as a nun in some sort of weird, sexy nun movie, and that's not what it is.
But that's what it should have. Like, that's
yeah.
Why
Yes,
not
and that
be
would have been
that?
like that would have been a star-making turn for her.
yeah, like just do it. Like,
If
lean
it was
into
good.
it, you know, like
I saw Benedetta, the Paul Verhoeven nun movie from a couple years ago. I talked about it on the podcast last season, I believe. And like that movie is a horny nun movie, but it's also actually interesting. Like there's actually interesting concepts that you're mulling over of like, is this person touched by God? Like, are they a saint or are they faking it? Like you don't know that the entire time. Like it actually engages your brain to think about these concepts on like a higher level. Whereas this movie is like a plain potato chip with no salt.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point?
well, remember Saint Maud? Saint Maud.
Yes,
too?
Saint Maud is
Same
great.
thing where you're kind
Yeah.
of, you know, what are you a believer? Are you a non-believer? Are you like? There's interesting themes there.
And even just beyond what it was trying to say or not trying to say or didn't successfully say or whatever, it also, just to go back, like is dumb as shit. Nothing actually makes sense in this fucking movie. Like the character of Father Sal is full out ridiculous. This is a cheesy movie villain, a biologist who became a priest and somehow was able to take millennia old DNA off of one of the spikes that pinned Jesus to the cross. And then they create a Jesus sperm with it to somehow
Helen
put
said
that
there
into
was
like,
I missed this, but Helen did say that
There's a penis in a jar.
Made penis, a makeshift Jesus penis.
Did you see that?
no.
Like when they're coming into the room and there's all the jars of like fetuses and stuff, there is one that has a little penis. And so I'm like, did they create a penis? A Jesus penis? Like,
But
what?
like,
How
what
does
are they-
it work?
How does it work?
We
Like,
don't know.
where is the sperm coming from off of this 2,000-year-old spike to like
and how
put
much
in?
was there like
know.
to work with?
And like, how did they know when it was exactly the right time? It's all so dumb.
It's
Like, it just
also dumb,
glazes
and that's
over
why it
that.
has to lean into being dumb.
Correct.
And it
Like,
should
come
have.
on.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that final scene, you got to show us the devil infant.
like you're not even gonna show us the little devil infant. Like really,
even if it looks like shit, I don't care. Show us like in Lamb, the half lamb, half.
We got
You
baby.
have to see it. You have to
us.
see it. It was absolutely absurd to not see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's transition into performances, because that last scene is one where I think she's getting a lot of attention for. There, in some of the reviews were positive for her in terms of that. What did you think?
I think that she is actually fine as a scream queen. I think. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that she is versatile. Like she just isn't. Like, you know, Florence Pugh, you can kind of move around and put in period pieces. She can be modern. She can be this. She has that like amazing voice that just commands things, that like anchors a movie. Sydney Sweeney doesn't have the voice that anchors a film.
No,
you know?
God, no.
She has the voice to play one character and one character only, and that's like a girl in high school in 2024. That's why she's good in Euphoria.
She's way too modern. She sounds too modern.
Oh God, yeah. For the whole first three quarters of the movie, I just felt like she was just this like dull, dead-eyed teenage daughter in White Lotus. Just that. It's so painfully dull. Every single line was monotone, was boring as hell. I couldn't stand her. I wish it was a different actress who could have put something of substance into these quieter moments. But I will say, once the shit hit the fan, I did start to buy into her more.
Like she is decent as a scream queen. When the horror picks up, it's okay. But whenever there was a scene that wasn't horror and it was just like her talking to the priest, I was like, this sounds like it's the start of a porno.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is intending to do that.
I mean,
at all.
The bit when she's like, when she's laying on the hospital bed when they give her the first ultrasound, this is the bit, it's like it's so incongruent. It's like she's laying there. This is somebody who we're supposed to believe is a truly devout, somebody who believes in God so much that she's going to become a nun. And she's laying there at a convent, and she knows that she hasn't had sex with anybody, and there's a baby in her stomach. Yeah. Would she not freak the fuck out and say, holy shit, I am carrying the baby?
Yeah.
Instead, she looks at the fucking monitor. Yeah, she should believe it.
Yeah.
But she looks at the monitor and looks like there's nothing. It's just, she's just looking at the monitor as if it's like a picture of, I don't know, a Big Mac. Like, nothing.
Yeah. I have nothing to say about technical.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Okay, so there were a couple of scenes where I appreciated the lighting, I will say. The way, like, there were a couple of times where they played with, like, her being the only light. When she was kind of, there's the one where her friend gets her tongue cut out and she's walking with the candle going through the house and out through the yard and whatever. And it's really well, I thought that was actually cool. And then they repeat that same kind of motif of just her with the light in the catacombs after with the flashlight. And I appreciated that. I thought it looked really scary and also really beautifully lit and was like her being a light in this darkness. I don't know, but I'm being very generous.
Was gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah. But also, sorry, but there's also like, I need to say one more thing. There's no catharsis in this movie
At all.
I assume she dies after she bashes the baby. Yeah, how do you survive that?
Where's she gonna go? Like she came out of that cave, and I was like, where the fuck is she? Like she's fucked.
There's nowhere for her to go, and she's also just given birth, bitten her umbilical cord, and has half a C-section done to her.
Yeah, she's just gonna bleed out for sure.
How is that?
And if she somehow manages to survive, then like the trauma. Okay, what was the last word on Immaculate? Sinclair.
You know, I had a good time too because I was with Helen and she was just getting so angry at this movie. And then we had an interesting conversation on the subway home about the makeshift Jesus penis. And I was like, are people overhearing our conversation?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
More entertaining than
I think it's really interesting how Sydney Sweeney is the draw for this movie, but the flaw of this movie at the same time. I just don't think you're going to get what you want out of this movie at all. It's not the worst way to spend an hour and whatever, but, you know, also not the best as well. This is, I'd say it below mediocre for me.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I would give this movie like a 5 out of 10. It was still...
Really?
I still had genuine suspense and tension at parts. Like, it's a horror-ish film. There were parts that I still was like, scared about and whatever. But I just, in general, it was so uneven. It didn't know what kind of movie it was. By the end, Sydney Sweeney had sort of won me over, but like still.
I mean, it didn't sound like that for the entire
No.
podcast. You were like, I hated it. I wish she was another actress. I didn't believe her at all.
You said you liked the screaming at the end.
I started not just the screaming. Once action happened, I started to buy her a little bit more. She just needed to like come alive.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like Hollywood is really trying to make her happen, and I'm like rooting for her. Something happened for her, but like I'm just all I could think of. Y'all were thinking Florence Pugh. I was just thinking Naomi Watts in The Ring.
I know.
And it's like obviously that's a much better film in general, but like that is a leading performance in a movie that's incredible.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did you believe she was a 9-month pregnant woman in labor during that entire time? Because I didn't.
No, I didn't believe anything. I didn't believe it. I did not believe a single thing about this movie. Nothing. No.
I left this movie saying Sydney Sweeney needs a new agent. And then you know what I learned? She auditioned for this movie in 2014. It didn't get made. She then went and acquired the rights, revised the script, produced this whole thing, and got it made herself. So this is on her. Okay?
This was her like passion project.
This is her fault. And I have no sympathy. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Talk Movie to Me.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, our email is talkmovietome@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram @talkmovietome. Rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And season 7 episodes are on YouTube @Talk Movie to Me Podcast. I'm Helen.
I'm Miss Sinclair. Praise be. Praise be.
Spiritu Sancti.